departments, behavior, mental health, PPS, safety and security, transportation, student services, and adult ed. Always a pleasure to work with a fabulous group of people, and it's an honor tonight to introduce Director John Sachs to honor 3 of our security officers. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to him.
Good evening, Board President Flores, board members, Superintendent Miranda, Dr. Miranda, and members of the audience. Try to make sure that works. And thank you for the opportunity to speak, present this information tonight. I really do appreciate it. On October 20th, 2022, Campus Security Officer Todd Vicentainer was on bicycle patrol in the lunch area during student lunch when he encountered a student who showed signs of severe emotional distress and whose behavior indicated the possibility of a mental breakdown or worse, self-harm. Mr. Vicentainer, recognizing the danger, radioed for assistance with Campus Security Officer Arthur Ortiz arriving moments later. Both Mr. Vicentainer and Mr. Ortiz assumed their respective roles as distractor and rescuer, safely bringing the student away from danger. During this time, Campus Security Officer Juliana Brown arrived. She and Mr. Ortiz played a critical role in helping de-escalate the student's distress to the point that the student felt safe enough to move to another area on campus. While there, the student received counseling and specialized support from CJUSD staff. Ms. Brown's calm, comforting words and reassurance enabled the student to open up to the administration and counseling team who worked with the student. Our campus security officers, working spontaneously and seamlessly in tandem, could not have planned their actions better than what they displayed on that day. Tonight, we join the Board of Education in recognizing the actions of Mr. Vicentainer, Mr. Ortiz, Ms. Brown. While they have expressed their sincerest appreciation for the acknowledgement in alignment with their character, they acknowledge that they were, quote, just doing their job, end quote, and insist that this was a team effort that included other members of the security team, the principal, and the counselor. We'll provide them with certificates. We're doing a great job, Mr. Goodbar, Mrs. Goodbar, and a non-alcoholic cider. As a department, they'll be recognized as well in front of their peers. Please join me in acknowledging with gratitude Todd Vicentainer, Arthur Ortiz, Juliana Brown for their heroic actions, professionalism, and calm during this incident. Unfortunately, as I had indicated, they do not want to be the center of attention on this. They just absolutely did not. They feel as if this was a joint effort with the entire squad over there, including the admin team and counselor, and this wasn't their thing. They did not want to be the center of attention for that. They're just doing their job. So on behalf of them, I'll accept this for right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, please send a message back to the 3 of them that we are incredibly grateful and very proud of what they've done, and just please let them know that
I will.
that on behalf of the board that we're very, very proud of them and very grateful.
I will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have we're moving on to 3.0. We have a public hearing, item 3.1. The Association of Colton Educators, Sunshine for Colton Joint Unified School District. This is a Sunshine for ACE. Okay. This is a public hearing. And now that I've opened the public hearing, are there any public comments related to this public hearing? Okay, very good. We're now closing the public hearing. We have item 3.2, Colton School Employee Association, CSEA, Sunshine Proposal for Colton Joint Unified School District. Okay, we are opening the public hearing. Are there any comments related to this public hearing? Hearing none, we are closing the public hearing. Item 3.3, Colton Joint Unified School District, Sunshine for Colton School Employee Association. Okay, we are opening the public hearing. And I would like to invite Interim Assistant Superintendent Dagnall to present the Sunshine Proposal.
Good evening, Board Flores, members of the board, Superintendent Miranda. Tonight, I will read to you the Sunshine successor contract negotiations with CSEA for the 2022-23 fiscal year. The Colton Joint Unified School District submits the following initial proposal to negotiate a successor contract for the collective bargaining agreement with the California School Employees Association and its Colton chapter number 244. The district is interested in bargaining the following articles: Article 6, compensation; Article 8, health and welfare benefits and the related appendices; Article 12, leave provisions; and Article 16, safety conditions. This list is not exhaustive, and the district reserves the right to make additional proposals as negotiations progress.
Any questions, any comments from the board? Is that the presentation? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for that. And we are now going to close this public hearing. Moving on to 4.0, public comments. We ask that the appropriate public comment card be filled out. Each speaker will be invited to the podium, and we ask that you begin by stating your name and your city of residence. Board bylaws 9323 state that individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 15 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. I would like to invite Lisa Villa up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Lisa Villa, and I'm from Colton. Good evening, everyone. I actually wanted to congratulate Art, Julie, and Todd for their actions at Bloomington High, but apparently they aren't here. This clearly tells me that 1 minute we are heroes, and the next minute we are written up. I am here because I am out on stress. I am tired of being singled out and harassed on a regular basis. My coworker was just recently unjustifiably transferred, and it was himself that was the victim in this situation, and no one cared for his well-being. The security managers do not care about our well-being. Why is it that they wear bulletproof vests, and those of us that would like to wear one are not allowed to? Are the security managers' lives more important than ours? It is us that is out on the front lines, breaking up fights, being at risk with weapons, not them. They are not easily accessible. There was an incident at Colton High just a couple weeks ago. As a parent, I was there and a community member, and it took an act of God to get a hold of one of them. And I have their direct line. Can you imagine if I was just a regular community member? The security managers abuse their power on a regular basis. I've asked you to oversee their transfers because they are personal, vindictive, and unprofessional. I truly believe they need leadership classes because the security department is the most broken, divided, segregated, and ununited department you have, which concerns me as a staff member and mostly as a parent. I love Colton Middle School. This has nothing to do with them. They treat me like the treasure that all of us are. I am a valuable asset to the students, staff, and my community. Ask the students and staff yourselves. Please don't go off of the security manager's views of us because their perceptions of us are clouded and untruthful. I am asking you, the board, to take control of, at least take a look at the security department and how the managers abuse their power. I've been begging and crying to you with facts and events for a couple of years now, but to no avail. You have continually allowed my managers to harass me regularly and unjustifiably transfer me from the place that I applied at. I don't know what to do next. Should I apply as a coach? Maybe I can be at the site I worked at, because if you're a coach, you get to work at the site you would prefer. So I'm about to be a football coach, and maybe I can be at the site I worked at. I think you really need to take a look at what's going on here and think about the community before you think about your friends and your coworkers and your, the people that you are around, because it's us out here in the community and it's our kids. It's my son that's a senior right now who I am not to be able to be with. And not only was I am the booster president of football, as you all know, and I have been told that I'm not allowed to be a booster president during work hours, not even if I use my own time.
Okay, thank you.
So take a look.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to the next speaker, Janet Howard.
Hi, my name is Janet Howard, and I'm a grandparent of Grand Terrace High School's children, and they're on the swim team. And what I know that the swimming pool is on the agenda tonight, but I was just wondering, because I've made calls to the high school and to the board about what they're going to do for swim practice this next season. And not only for Grand Terrace, but also for the Colton swim team. And that's basically what my questions are. And also, I know you have a plan on repairing the pool, but I was wondering if there is a timeline connected to that. That's basically it. I would like to, some of the parents, I have some of the swimmers here and a couple of the parents, and we've been trying to get some answers on if there's going to be a swim team.
Thank you. And we will direct the superintendent to get in touch with you and to address your concerns. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, that concludes the public comments for today. And so we're moving on to administrative presentation, item 5.1, PBIS and positive school climate presentation. This is by Student Services Division. I would like to invite Assistant Superintendent Dr. Ortiz to introduce Director Kingston.
Thank you, Board President Flores, members of the board, Dr. Miranda. At the August 4th safety presentation that I delivered to the board, there were some questions regarding PBIS and a request to hear for a survey and to get some feedback on PBIS. So glad to introduce Ms. Director, Ms. Missy Kingston. She's going to provide some information about PBIS.
Good evening, Board President Flores, members of the board, Dr. Miranda, Executive Cabinet, and members of the audience. My name is Melissa Kingston. I'm the Director of Student Services, and tonight I'm going to present regarding PBIS and positive school climate. So we're going to talk about, oh, thank you, Jamal. We're going to talk about the why, what, and how regarding positive school climates. So why do we want positive school and work climates? What is it, and how does that relate to PBIS? And finally, how do we create these climates here in CJUSD? And we've talked before about what PBIS is, and so tonight we're going to talk about the why. And the fundamental purpose of school-wide PBIS is to make schools more effective and equitable learning environments. PBIS is a framework, and it establishes a social culture and behavioral supports needed for the school to be an effective learning environment for all students. It establishes a social culture, and when people have a common language, experience, and vision and values, it creates a sense of membership, and that helps lead to a positive school climate. So why do we need positive school climates? Students learn best, employees work best when they feel valued, comfortable, supported, and safe. When we have positive climates, students and employees will want to go to school and work. They'll feel supported and respected and be engaged in their learning and/or work and take pride in their performance. People feel safe, valued, and included when they're in positive climates. They're free from bullying and harassment, and people in these environments get what they need when they need it. So what makes a positive school or work climate? Well, lots of things contribute to this. Here's a few examples. Physical space. So what does the physical space look and feel like? Supportive, respectful relationships, engaged students and engaged employees, and behavioral supports. At school sites, this is PBIS, where students are taught behavioral expectations just like they're taught the curriculum and provided with supports when they need them. The concept of PBIS is not only for students, it's for all people. And along with behavioral supports, we also need to have fair, consistent discipline policies for both students and employees. Safety. Do students feel safe on campus? And finally, inclusion. Positive school climates are places where everyone is respected, valued, and provided with the support that they need. Positive school climates have supportive and respectful relationships among people. So students and employees have friends or work or study partners. They're generally happy, and they feel there are other people they can go to for help. In these climates, students feel they can go to teachers or other staff for help when needed, for either academic or social problems. Employees feel safe to speak with supervisors or other employees for help or support. The big idea here is that when we have positive school and work climates, people are treated with respect. And positive school climates, in the next couple slides you're going to see some pictures, really lead to engaged students and employees. And when we create these positive climates, we intentionally create spaces and environments where people can work together. We go back just one, Mr. Thank you. Whether you're a student or a teacher, you work in an office, you work on a grounds crew, working collaboratively generally makes people less stressed and more productive. Next slide, please. Thank you. Behavioral supports are an important component of a positive school or work climate. At school sites, CJUSD has adopted PBIS as our behavioral framework, but these concepts aren't just for students, they're for everyone. In positive climates, disciplinary experiences are viewed as learning opportunities, not as vehicles for excluding students or employees. We're not in the business of kicking kids out of school or firing employees. That's not our goal. Positive behaviors promoted, acknowledged, and rewarded, and disciplinary actions are based upon written policies that are administered fairly and consistently for all people. Tiered supports are provided for all students and employees who need them. People get what they need when they need it, and this ensures equity, which is one of the pillars of our CJUSD design plan. And finally, behavioral expectations are taught and modeled. PBIS is a mindset. It's the framework for how we do business. PBIS helps create a more positive culture on campus, and it does include bullying prevention. It provides that predictable environment and a sense of belonging. PBIS teaches positive behavior the way we teach academics and combines prevention, consequences, and teaching. With PBIS, behaviors addressed through explicit direct instruction and multi-tiered systems of support for all students. Teaching expected behaviors is essential for Common Core instruction and college and career readiness, but it does require a shift in adult thinking and behavior. It's a mental shift from what can we do to the student to what can we do for or with the student. And it's become the new CJUSD way and is part of our design plan. So how do we measure PBIS implementation? The TFI is the Tiered Fidelity Inventory, and it measures the implementation of all 3 tiers of PBIS, and this is completed annually. Action plans are written for all areas that are not being fully implemented. And then the TFI scores are actually used by the California PBIS Coalition for PBIS recognition. For 21-22, all 27 schools were awarded with recognition from the PBIS Coalition. We had 10 sites receive gold status, and that means that tiers 1 and 2 are at 70% or higher with at fidelity of implementation. They also look at referral and academic data. 10 sites receive silver, which tier 1 must be at 70% or higher, and 7 sites receive bronze, which means tier 1 is between 40 and 69%. And on this slide, you'll see the schools that were awarded the gold, silver, and bronze recognition distinctions. Just a side note, there is going to be a recognition ceremony from SBCSS on November 8th, so we will be attending that as well. The TFI is one way to measure PBIS implementation, and now we're going to discuss the results of the CJUSD PBIS staff survey that was sent out. And this survey provided us with staff perception data. And these are the questions that we ask regarding PBIS at the school sites. So where do you work? Do you know what PBIS is? Do you know what the site expectations are? What's working? What needs to improve? For teachers, are you implementing PBIS in your classroom? And then what resources or support do you need? And this is a breakdown of who responded to the survey. So there were 684 responses, 71% were teachers. Of those teachers, 97.5% of the teachers that responded said yes, they are implementing PBIS in their classrooms. And then the rest of the breakdown in terms of classified employees, administrators, coaches, itinerant staff, et cetera. Of all respondents, 94% stated that they know what the site PBIS expectations are and what PBIS is in general. And here's what the results were for the staff of what they feel is working well. Overwhelmingly, Tier 1. Tier 1, everyone felt, for the most part, is working very well. And that's the incentives, the positive reinforcement, that common language and expectations across the campus, clear expectations for students of what is expected, a general more positive and energetic vibe on campus, and reports that students are a bit more respectful and responsible than they saw prior to PBIS. In terms of what needs to improve, tiers 2 and 3, both the implementation and then access to various tiered supports. Respondents also talked about accountability and consequences for inappropriate behavior among students, school-wide participation, so getting all the adults in the school on board so that it's a consistent message, buy-in from students, staff, and parents. Even more respect is needed, training and understanding of PBIS, especially tiers 2 and 3, different incentives, and then consistency and fidelity with implementation. In terms of what supports or resources are needed, training. Overwhelmingly, this came up specifically related to tiers 2 and 3, and how to implement tiered interventions. Also, more help and information about how to help students that have intensive behaviors, and then more incentives and consequences. Respondents really wanted more consequences for students. Next slide, thank you. These are the supports that have been put in place so far this year. So I've been having individual PBIS meetings with each school site. I've actually met with each school site at least once, some of the sites 2 or 3 times so far this school year, and sat down with the administrator, sometimes the coaches were there or the counselors, to review their action plans. And now the action plans were written based on last year's TFI that measures the fidelity of implementation, and any missing pieces or areas of improvement, that's what was written on those action plans. So we sat down together to look at what are the next steps for each individual school, because what might be needed at Alice Burney is different than Bloomington High School, and that's different than Slover. So we sat down to really individualize support for the site and look at what are their next steps. We also talked about, is there any future training needed for either the coaches, the admin, the teachers, the staff in general? In terms of outside training, SBCSS has had refresher courses they're offering on all 3 tiers of PBIS. And in working with PPS and Mr. Pearson, the school psychologists are also offering 2 trainings at each school site to go over behavior. So they're behavioral experts. They're going over sort of behavior 101, like what is behavior, how to manage more low-level behaviors. And then they're going into a little bit more about function of behavior. These are tier 2 type of training, function of behavior, and really the ABCs of behavior, the antecedent, the behavior, the consequence. So what happens right before? What is the operationalized behavior that we see or hear? And then what happens right after? And then how do we make decisions based on that data? So we discussed how we measure PBIS, but how can we measure school climate? Because PBIS leads to a positive school climate. One way is we do have a PBIS school climate survey that is taken by students in grades 3 through 12, and it's taken twice a year, in the fall and the spring. And we use that survey data for our LCAP reporting. And the goal for us is an average score of 3. So it's a rating of 1 to 4, and so our goal is that there's an average score of 3. These are some example questions. There's only about 10 questions on the survey, so it's things like, I like school, teachers treat me with respect, good behaviors noticed at school, I feel safe, there's an adult at my school that I can talk with if I need help. Next slide, please. And so these were the results. For elementary, the goal, of course, for everybody is 3, and the average score among the elementary schools was 3.11. In secondary, middle schools were at 2.92, comprehensive high schools at 2.85, and then alternative ed at 3.17. So as you can see, elementary and adult and alternative education are meeting the goal currently. We have a little bit of work to do with comprehensive middle school and high school, specifically related to some of the student responses about, I feel safe at school. So in the next couple slides, you're going to see some pictures. And measuring school, or district for that matter, climate is very complex. Culture and climate is a feeling, and it's subjective. And we use a few surveys to gather this data. The PBIS school climate survey that we just talked about, and that measures student perception. The CJUSD PBIS survey, that was the staff perception data. And then the TFI, which measures the fidelity of implementation. And we also have the Hanover survey for LCAP, which measures staff, student, and parent perception of school climate. So when you're measuring school climate, there's also anecdotal data. So how do you feel when you're on the campus? Do you feel welcome? Do you feel supported, seen, and valued? Are you comfortable? Do you want to be there? So if you look at the pictures on these 2 slides, they speak volumes. I know we spoke earlier about PBIS, and I think sometimes PBIS gets taken out of context because it's not just the behavioral framework, it's about creating this positive school climate. So when we have these events at schools and the red carpet and the happiness sprinkling, all of those things that we do are part of PBIS and improving school climate. Next slide, please. So here's some next steps. We really need to look into some training around restorative practices. We have some counselors that are trained in restorative practices, but really as a district, more training around community building and then restorative practices. Continued one-on-one support, and that really comes from me with the school sites to see where they are and what they need specific to their school site and their implementation of PBIS at their site. Bullying prevention, like I said, that is also embedded in PBIS through the respect expectation, but it needs to continue throughout the year, right? So October is National Bullying Prevention Month, but bullying prevention does not end in October. This is a 24/7 challenge. We also need to look at MTSS, and which is just multi-tiered systems of support so that we're integrating academics, attendance, behavior through a tiered lens so that people are getting what they need and we're not working in silos with academics on one side and attendance over there and behavior over here in a PBIS team, to get our teams working with the whole student and what does each child need in whatever area it is. And then lastly, positive relationships. So between adults, between students, and between students and adults. And so ultimately, this is our goal. We want to create schools and workplaces where students want to attend, parents want to send their kids, and employees want to work. Studies find positive school climate decreases absenteeism, it decreases suspension, decreases substance abuse and bullying, and increases students' academic achievement, motivation to learn, and psychological well-being. In addition, working in positive climates lessens employee burnout and increases retention. So creating positive and engaging school and work climates involves all of us here at CJUSD. It's not going to be easy, and it takes a lot of time, but it's definitely worth it. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Missy. We have a board member, Haro.
I have a question. When you showed the about the elementary and middle and high school, and middle and high school, you said we had a little work to do as far as regarding the I feel safe at school comment or question on the survey. What are we doing to address those concerns? Because to me, that's huge. If a student doesn't feel safe at school, they're not going, it's not conducive to learning. And then the second part of that question is, was that same question asked to staff? Because they need to feel safe at school also. And what kind of response do we get from our staff?
Yeah, in the student survey, one of the questions is the do I feel safe? Consistently, that's the lowest scored question. That gets the low scores across all levels. And that is what the sites are looking at. So the sites have access to their results for their specific school. And then it's working on that climate, like how do we have activities? How do we address bullying or harassment? So it's a multitude of things that the school sites do in order to create that atmosphere and that climate where kids feel more safe. In response to the staff, the PBIS school climate survey is only taken by students. It's not taken by staff, but I believe in the Hanover survey, there's a question for staff related to feeling safe. At least in the past, I believe that was a question for staff. So we don't yet have that data. I believe that survey is still going on, still open right now.
Okay. I think that this particular I feel safe at school, I think this is something that really needs to have a deep dive into it and find out why is a student, if there was a way to find out more, do they feel like they're being bullied? Do they, heaven forbid, but are they thinking they see all this thing on the news and shootings? What is it that's making them not feel safe?
Yeah.
Because once we know what it is, then maybe we can fix the problem or address it.
Sure.
So, okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
Board Member Flores.
Thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions with respect to the staff survey. And we did get feedback from teachers and other staff. We asked, do you know what PBIS is and whether or not your site, what those expectations are? Did we ask the simple question of, do you think it's working? Right? Because we asked them, do you know what it is? Have you heard of it? Do you know what those expectations are? That's one question. But the simple question of, do you think it's working is probably an even more important question. So did we get to that?
Yeah, we ask what's working. So the responses on the slide are what the majority of the answers were. There were a few outlier answers that would say nothing, right? Or everything, or so those were sort of outliers. But we wanted to know, okay, what do you feel is working? What do you feel isn't? What support do you need? How can we help? Was really the purpose of finding out. And based on that and the individual meetings, that's kind of where we're at. That's where a lot of the training with the psychologists. I'm actually also reaching out to SBCSS to look at, can we do some trainings, maybe virtual trainings after school for teachers if they choose to go, on different aspects of PBIS, because training is a real concern right now with lack of subs for teachers. So the PBIS coaches and the counselors and the admin have the opportunity, but the classroom teacher is very, very difficult. So we're still trying to think outside the box and find creative ways to get some training for the teachers.
And it sort of segues into my next question. And it's great to hear that the tier 1 activities are being very well received. And I think all of us can speak to the positive, the proactive activities that we all participate in, which is great, whether it's being there early in the morning to greet the kids, the activity, that's wonderful. Where the concern is obviously is tiers 2 and 3, and that's really the intervention piece. And I'll speak specifically with elementary schools because I think that's where my big focus and concern is, because on our high school campuses in particular, where you tend to have more administration and a little more folks there to help participate in intervention. We have security campus there. We may have an SRO there. Elementary schools are very small in terms of leadership administration. Who is responsible for implementing those interventions on campus when something happens and you need an intervention?
So it depends what it is. If it's a crisis situation, we would reach out to Mr. Castro and his team. If it is like, let's say, a behavior that's occurring multiple times or something like that, Each school has a tier 2, 3 team. And so they collect behavioral data. They have screening tools with kind of cut points that are different for every site. Like, what academic data do we want to look at? The purpose of the screener is like, how do we know who might need interventions, right? To catch them early. And so then, based on the function of the behavior, based on the data that they have, which includes, that's why our behavior referrals have the information that they have that's pushed into Q, so that it can be disaggregated to look at, okay, what's the function of the behavior? Because with behavioral interventions, the intervention has to match the function. So they've gone through and not only created the screening tool, but then the tier 2 team pulls the data of what students actually meet the screening criteria. And then looking at those kids, is it an outlier, or is this something we need to take to the tier 2 team to address? And then they've created a matrix of interventions. So what kind of interventions do they have at the site? What's the function of the behavior that's actually like in a matrix? And then they can say, okay, everything we know about little Missy, we think the function of her behavior is adult attention. And then they look on the matrix. Here's all of the ones that we have that meet adult attention as a function of that intervention. Based on knowing everything we know about Missy, which one do we want to start with? And then they're layered. So a low-level intervention might be, let's say, small groups with a counselor, right? And then maybe Missy needs a little bit more. So I have some intervention individual groups with the counselor. And then maybe I need some type of maybe check in, check out, because I need a little more support during the day. And then maybe we find, okay, that's not enough. We need to refer to mental health. And then if the student becomes like a client of mental health or any individual support, that's that transition from tier 2 to 3. So it kind of scaffolds up, and sort of at the top of tier 2 is like where an SST would come in. Like, we've tried lower level, now we really need to take a real deep dive into it. Tier 2 by design is meant to be like quick and easy. Like, as soon as the student isn't progressing with tier 1 in and of itself, let's pour some intervention and get the kid back into tier 1. And so historically, education as a whole has not done a great job with tier 2 for behavior. I mean, this is relatively new. PBIS really came to California about 10 years ago. So you see a lot more students looking like, oh, this student might need tier 3 supports, individual intensive supports, because maybe historically there weren't a lot of lower level supports. It's like if you have a kindergarten student that you know has no phonemic awareness, if you catch them by the end of kindergarten, much easier to bring them up to grade level than if you find out in 6th grade. And so that's what those teams do. They look at the data on the student, everything they know about the student, and choose the intervention based on the function of the student's behavior. And then they just try different things. Does it work? Does it not? And there's progress monitoring that goes along with it.
And are those teams made up of, I assume, teachers and folks on that site or at
Yeah,
that site?
everybody's at the site. So the tier 2 team is the counselor. There's usually a counselor on the team. Sometimes the counselors are the coaches, oftentimes an administrator, and then usually another teacher or two. Typically like the more intervention-minded teachers, or sometime a TOA. So the intervention people, sometimes it's a special education teacher, and they volunteer to be on the different teams. So tier 1 is more I call them the cheerleaders and the happy and the positive, and then tier 2, 3 is the intervention folks.
So, and I think that's great. And I think under normal circumstances, that probably works well. I think the challenge is, right, our TOAs right now are subbing, so their hands are full. And then you've got other folks that are trying to deal with the other issues. So this adds a layer to that. Probably even more simplistic question, what happens in the moment where you have a student that is disrupting the class? I'm thinking from the perspective of the teacher, disrupting the class. And in that moment, right, something needs to happen, because I'm trying to teach the class, and you have to make a decision. I'm not a teacher. Many of you you have to decide, I'm going to focus my attention on the one at the sacrifice of continuing the lesson plan for the whole. And I think that's the concern, is finding ways that we can intervene quickly, effectively, and not put this strain on our teachers that are having to make these difficult choices. Or can somebody come in? Is there a system in place that'll help address that, so we don't lose learning time in the moment when we have so few folks on campus to spare? Elementary schools are a great example. Aren't a lot of extra bodies hanging out at an elementary campus waiting to jump in and help. It's a bigger issue, and that's not one necessarily to be tackled here. But I think, and I'll say this, what we're seeing at our elementary level are more incidents of behavioral issues and I'll say a higher intensity, activities and things that once you only saw at high schools and middle schools, we're now seeing and having to intervene even from a law enforcement standpoint that just never happened before. So I think this is great, and we need to continue to have this conversation and look at the issues that are coming up that require more or new approaches. We don't have security staff on campus regularly at our elementary schools like we do at the other schools. Historically, you could say we probably didn't need it. It's changing. We're seeing things happen on campus now that need to involve more of a security or even, like I said, a law enforcement element that we didn't see before.
Yeah.
So I mean, has that been your, you see even more than we do because
100%.
all of it comes to
Yeah,
your desk.
specifically since returning to school,
Yeah.
we see a lot more intensive and a lot more trauma and need for emotional support. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Board Member Ojeda.
My concern schools. I know schools don't have enough. Things are becoming more schools than they ever have. Certainly 10 years ago when I left, there are a lot of different. 10 years, 11 years ago when I left, things were very, very different than I know they are today. And the feedback I'm getting from teachers is that there's just no time to do anything. And by when he was saying immediate assistance, when a behavior occurs, it needs to be dealt with right then and there, because if it's not, the teacher has that problem in the classroom that continues and doesn't stop. And I do think that we need to really look at some behavior, some interventions that can happen right now. And it may end up needing more personnel, or at least more systemic changes district-wide. So we're doing the same thing and providing the assistance we need, because a lot of situations in schools need help right now and they're not getting it. So I think what I would like to ask is, when you talk with your folks, is it enough intervention? How often do these people meet? Like Mr. Flores was saying, we're having trouble with subs. We're having difficulty. I mean, people are just every day trying to get back into routines. I bet there's not enough even meetings that they would need to have to make an effective change at each school site. I would like to ask if we could work with schools or get ideas collectively from different sites, the people at the sites that are involved in this. It's like, what do they perceive as a plan that could work? And maybe every site might not be the very same in everyone, definitely different at high school than elementary. But if we don't correct the behaviors with the children in elementary, they're not going to get corrected in high school. And we're going to lose those kids. We need to have help immediately or very quickly to support teachers so they can do the job of teaching in the classroom. So they're not taking 20 minutes after recess to fix a problem that happened on a fight on the playground, because that's instruction lost. And if we really need to look at that, and we need to give the teachers and administrators support that they need to make this happen. And if it involves adding support people or whatever we need to do, we need to think about that as a board, because we're at a critical point. I think we need to look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a question about your next steps. You're addressing bullying prevention, and it's good to see that you're doing it throughout the year, not just in October, and then it's gone. So my question is, does Tier 1 address bullying? Does it, do you see that? Because, we talk about being kind and, but so I'm sure it does, but I'm wondering to what extent. And then also, is that part of Tier 2, or how do you address that? Because that's every parent's concern, is my child is being bullied. So I would like to see more clarity, or just on what is it that we're doing throughout the year, and in what tier, where does bullying fit in?
So bullying prevention's Tier 1. And that's typically taught through the respect expectation. Every single school site on their own has respect as one of their expectations. And so their PBIS has its own bullying prevention curriculum, and it's very, very simple. Elementary is called Stop, Walk, Talk, and secondary is called Expect, Respect. And and it's really teaching students. If someone does or says something disrespectful to you, tell them to stop. If they stop, it's over, and walk away. If it doesn't, go and get an adult so that the adult can intervene. And it's basically the same concept. So tier 1 is the prevention activities, the kindness, the Unity Day, all of the activities and teaching respect and what respect looks like. When I talked about restorative practices, we really need some training on community building in the classroom, on the campus, because restorative practices, you have to have something to restore. So if the sense of community isn't there to begin with, there's not much to restore. It's about restoring relationships and restoring harm that's been done. And so where tier 2 comes in is if there is a pattern of behavior where someone's being disrespectful, rude, bullying, what have you, that's when it's addressed individually with that student based on, okay, what's going on? What's the why behind it? The whole thing about behavior is we have to get to the why. It's like when we talk about attendance, why? What is the barrier? What's getting in the way? And it's the same with behavior. They have to have that data to make that decision, because if we don't have data where we're looking at the function of behavior and finding out the why, it's a Yahtzee intervention, right? We're just rolling the dice and picking something that may or may not work. And that's why it's so critical that we have that data.
Well, thank you. I believe that's it. And
You brought up bullying.
Okay.
I guess.
We actually use the threshold in the California Education Code. So California Education Code defines bullying as severe or pervasive to the point where the student cannot benefit from school. So if you called me a name one time, that's disrespectful behavior, but may not rise to the level of bullying. If something's egregious, it might be a one-time event, or something that's going on over a period of time and becoming pervasive. If now this child doesn't want to go to school, they're in fear or what have you. And so that's when the school sites, they investigate every allegation of bullying. So there's a whole complaint form. And the reason we have that is so we can get as many details as possible so that the admin can really do a thorough investigation to find out, okay, was this a one-off thing? Because you're right, the term bullying gets thrown around. There's a lot of disrespectful behavior among kids, among adults. I mean, let's just be real, in society. And so differentiating and teaching kids the difference between somebody's being disrespectful, saying hurtful things, or actually bullying. And so that's what comes out of those investigations. And then depending on what was found in the investigation, then different consequences and interventions are put into place to address that specific child. You're welcome.
Thank you.
okay. Okay, well, thank you.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz and Director Kingston, for the excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, we are moving on to 6.0 action session items. And I'm going to ask if anyone would like any item to be considered separately. We are going to be pulling items 6.3 and 6.4 for separate consideration. Any other items?
I believe it was 6.5, actually.
6.5? Okay.
Oh, or no, it's been pulled off the agenda. I'm sorry. Yeah.
6.19, okay. So you want to, we should pull it, no? No, just, okay. All right, so I need a motion to approve action items 6.1 through 6.2 and 6.5 through 6.30. I need a motion. Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Thawing Ojeda and second by Board Member Flores to approve action items 6.1 and 6.2 and 6.5 through 6.30. And at one point, do you want to address
Right
now?
there, the
now?
questions.
Okay. Any questions on 6.1?
So I had a question just on 6.19. This Ms. Howard, who was here, she brought up a good question regarding the pool. And I just have a question on how we decide when we're going to do repairs, replacement. I mean, is this something like, and just my question, and because, like on something like this, is this like a repair because like something happened now and we have to replace it right this minute? Or, or is this something that do we think about how we're affecting kids when we're doing these kind of repairs? Is it something that we could do so that they could have their season? Or I'm just curious how we decide those things.
Absolutely, and I can ask Mr. Chang to come up. We absolutely take in consideration the impact it has on our students, and when there's a really an urgent need to fix due to the in this situation, and I think Owen, you can come up and explain a little bit better than I can, but when there's a situation that, for example, involves in this case the health department, that need to come out and inspect the pool, and they require certain fixes, then we have no choice but to do it.
So then my question then is it's an urgent need. The pool wasn't being used up until now when we're going to start soccer, swimming season and whatever, water polo, whatever. So wouldn't we do inspections on things like this like months ago, so we could have found out, oh, we have a problem, we need to fix this before swim season, instead of during the season or when the season's just going to start, is my question.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a process that we have to go through to get architects and bids for it. That's what takes the timing and extends it out, unfortunately. So that's why we try to, again, not impact. But Owen, if you come up and talk a little bit about where we're at with the pool, because you see it on the agenda tonight. This problem existed far back. But anyways.
Sure, yeah. I can share some information, but maybe limited. Maybe I could share a little bit more detail in board correspondence because it is a active litigation.
Okay.
So I have to kind of be careful what I say. But we are actively actively working on the repair, making with architects, looking at various solutions and so forth, and looking at possible state match, to help the financial impact. But the pool is in a state where it does need some significant repair. So, and that's based on evaluation by the architect. We have insurance involved, and then we also have, as I mentioned, pending litigation. So we have an active case filed against the original contractor.
Okay.
And installed. But yeah, so it's a little prolonged process because we have to give opposing party opportunity to investigate the pool. And so I can share a little bit more detail.
So I understand what you're saying in this situation, but in other situations, let's say we're putting in, I don't know, a new track or whatever, are we, we're not going to do that. Do we inspect them at the beginning of the year? So before track season starts, that it's, we're not fixing things while the kids need it, is what I'm asking. So do we inspect those months in advance, or when school starts, before the season starts? How far in advance do we, because I'm just wondering, because of the kids, how it impacts our kids.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll probably have to defer in terms of the regular inspection to the maintenance operation, but just based on certain things that I'm aware of, like the bleachers, there's a regulation that requires annual inspection. Like the turf, they do annual impact tests to make sure it still falls within the impact, thresholds and so forth. So that is done annually on those, specific items. But in terms of other things, I'll probably have to, defer to.
So good question. So good, you bring up turf. So so if we do that, or whoever does that annual inspection, when we go back to school, say in July, these kids are already practicing, summer practice and all that on that field. At what, so something like that, when do they do that when do they do that inspection to know if this field is going to be okay for them to play for the school year. That's why I'm just,
Right. I'll probably, I have to defer that to the maintenance operation. We can include that in the board.
okay,
correspondence.
all right, thank you. I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
But
Thank-
in terms,
Follow-up question? I mean, the simple question is, do we know at this juncture whether this improvement or repair is going to impact their season? Do we have an indication at this point?
yes, it will impact their season just because of the length of time, because it requires structural engineer and other division of state architect approval, the amount of work involved. So we are, it will impact. So we'll been corresponding with the school administrators and looking at some options and to some alternative for students to practice. So we're going to reach out to neighbor districts and
Okay.
Gonzalez Center and look at the available possibility of some alternative solution.
Oh, interesting.
So a student can continue the practice and competition.
Okay. And that's because the length of time it's going to require to actually do the work, right?
Yeah,
It's gonna-
exactly. Yeah.
No matter where you put it in the year, it's going to have an impact on one end or the other.
Right. Unfortunately, the design process, the agency review, bidding, you're going to impact the school year.
And we obviously have a limited
No
resource
matter
of
what time you
tools in
start.
the district.
Right.
I imagine the one on top of Whitmer is not available, right? Bad joke. Good joke.
Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you, Director Chang. I have a motion by Board Member Ojeda and second by Board Member Flores to approve items 6.1 through 6.30 with the exception of 6.3 and 6.4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Okay. On motion by Board Member Thorning Ojeda and Board Member Flores, and carried on a 5-0 vote, the board approved action items 6.1 through 6.30 with the exception of 6.34. Item 6.3, I need a motion to approve item 6.3. Okay, Haro and Fuentes, okay. Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Haro and second by Board Member Fuentes to approve action item 6.3. All those in favor say aye and abstain. A motion by Board Member Haro and Board Member Fuentes and carried on a 4-0 vote with Board Member Thorning Ojeda abstaining. Action item 6.3 will pass. Okay, we now have item 6.4. I need a motion to approve item 6.4. Okay. By motion by Board Member Haro and second by Board Member Fuentes to have a motion to approve item 6.4. All those in favor say aye. Okay, abstain. I will be abstaining. On motion by Board Member Haro and Board Member Fuentes and carried on a 4-0 vote with myself, Bertha Flores, abstaining. The board approved item 6.4. With that, we are moving to administrative reports. We do have item 7.1, approved disbursements. Are there any questions or comments from board members on this item 7.1? Okay. Item 7.2, there is no facilities update today. Item 7.3, ACE update. I would like to invite ACE President Parachi to present. No comments. Okay, very good. Item 7.4, CSEA update. President Wadarama is not here. No report. Okay. Item 7.5, we have a MAC update. Okay.
Good evening, Board President Flores, board members, Superintendent Dr. Miranda, and members of the audience. On behalf of MAC, I'd like to present the following updates. Next slide, please. We'd like to share our upcoming events. We are partnering with our CJUSD Risk Department to provide the Wellness Walk on 11/14 at Bloomington High School. We'd like to invite everybody to participate in this walk for World Diabetes Day. And so we encourage you to come out and join us on the track.
MAC is also going to be hosting a Max Mixer on 11/18. And this is going to be at Black Angus. This is right before our Thanksgiving break. So we'd like to invite our CJUSD management to join us. And then on to 11/23, we will be hiking Mount Rubidoux. For those of you who love to hike, we hope that you will join us at 8:30. You can sleep in a little bit. And bring your family and friends to hike Mount Rubidoux with us. Next slide. On behalf of our equity Vice President for MAC, administrators are starting to review their equity pillars at staff meetings, which is in alignment with the CJUSD DSDP, and determining what equity looks like at sites and for all employees on campus. We are also intentionally looking at the equity policies already in place and putting into practice some norms across the district. We're also intentionally working to affirm all groups that make up CJUSD and ensuring that everyone feels valued and a part of the system, which is in alignment with some of the things that Mrs. Kingston was saying in terms of PBIS. We also are proud to announce that we have 3 individuals from our MAC team who are presenting at the AXA Leadership Summit, which is taking place on the 3rd through the 5th currently. So we'd like to give a shout out to Dr. Eric Mooney, who is presenting on a tool to support equity-driven conversations. Mrs. Tiffany Hampton from Slover Mountain High School, continuation school, the weight of winning racial equity and transformative educational leadership, and Jessica Gomez, who is presenting on flipping the script 2.0, even more strategies to create culture of collaboration. And when you look down there at the graphics, you can see that when we're talking about equality, we really want to get to equity. And so to get to equity, we do need to have opportunities for access, opportunities for our students to be successful, for stakeholders to have a voice, to be intentional with our funding sources so that we can provide access for our students to be college and career ready so that they have an opportunity for equity. And that's what our vision is. Next slide. We'd also like to share some legislative updates. We want to inform everyone that AB 1667 passed, which is great news for all of our members. This pertains to the security for retirees and helps LEAs keep STRS and PERS stable for what is approximately 2080. So that's great news for us. AXA is also revamping their dashboard, and so this year they will have status-only updates. It's a communication tools for AXA members. And due to the staff shortages that are felt across the country and the nation, AXA is working to remove barriers to create pathways for credentialing programs. Also, as a reminder, we'd like to encourage everyone to reach out to their local legislators during the November time period and December time period. We are projecting to see about 1/3 of our representatives being new representatives. So make sure you make those phone calls and or write those letters. And next slide. And at this time, we would like to say that we appreciate everyone's efforts to open up our school year, to get us off to a great start for the fall. We want to wish all of our MAC members, as well as all of our CJUSD families, a happy and safe holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Lots going on. Okay, I would like to invite ROP board members if they have anything to present.
Our meeting is next week.
Okay. 8.0 Superintendent's Communique.
All right, good evening, Board President Flores, board members, members of the audience. It is my pleasure this evening to present my superintendent's communique. I have 3 items. I want to start off with this outstanding event that just occurred with the San Bernardino County's California State Seal of Biliteracy ceremony. I got the opportunity and the privilege to attend this great celebration with actually Dr. Wendy Moore, our director of LSS. And so we are so proud of the 84 students thus far who have qualified for the State Seal of Biliteracy. So we're going to have more than that, I'm sure, by the end of the year. The students were celebrated and hosted again by the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools on October 27th at the Ontario Convention Center. And it was filled, I'll tell you, it was there. And it was a great ceremony and just great to have our superintendent of schools there, Ted Alejandre. And just so you know, normally the award is given later in the year at graduation. However, the county superintendent of schools wanted to ensure that the SEAL Biliteracy candidates can include this in their college applications. So the candidates who received the San Bernardino County's California State Seal of Biliteracy Award were selected based on the record showing that they met the criteria to receive this great honor by the state. So it's not easy to attain. And so they had to do that by October 1st of this year, show proof that they met all the requirements. So again, as stated earlier, it's early on in the year. So we expect a lot more students to receive this state recognition, and that will be determined in May of 2023. And then those students will be recognized at their respective graduation ceremonies. So congratulations to all the students and all the teachers. Just having another language and being biliterate is a critical skill, I believe, especially in the world that we live in. So congratulations again, and teachers, administrators. It was just an awesome event. All right, next slide, please. All right, the kindness bus. You've heard about PBIS and just we coordinated that, right? Ms. King said, yeah, right. But, I'll tell you, because this is a big part of what we do in this district. And I want to just take the opportunity to give a huge, big shout out to not only our awesome transportation department for driving the kindness bus throughout the district. I also have to say to our IT director, Mr. Jamal Boyce, he was out there dancing. The students, I'll tell you, were just enjoying that. And he wanted me to get out there, but my knee was not working well. Anyways, but what an amazing day. The bus stopped at school sites to spread kindness, inclusion, and unity. And it's much needed. And love, to be honest with you. There was a lot of love out there. And so again, thank you to our awesome Grand Terrace High School Titan students who painted the bus this year, and all those staff who participated and make this such a memorable day for our students. It's an incredible day, and just got to go out there to the sites. And I know board members were out there too, celebrating, just to see the faces of our little ones, and all of them, middle school and high school kids, is just amazing. It's what fills our buckets. So again, thank you to Grand Terrace High School, who did just an amazing job with the kindness bus. And last but not least, we continue to push attendance awareness, and we want kids to, obviously at school, because that's where they're going to learn. There's a correlation between going to school and learning. So I want to thank the Child Welfare and Attendance Department under Student Services Division, who have been just busy. Chrissy Padilla, they've been celebrating the winning students and the teachers for the September Attendance Awareness Class Competition. So for the last couple of weeks, again, the CWA team, and they've brought Kona Ice. I was in classrooms, and they just thanked actually Dr. Ortiz for bringing the Kona Ice. I think they're starting to call him the Kona Ice Man, but it was pretty awesome. The kids, we were in the classrooms that won actually the competition, and they really appreciate the Kona Ice. And so congratulations. They got some really awesome, tasty, cold, icy treats. And so the classes were also presented with a classroom poster and a banner indicating that they had the best attendance for the month of September. So a big thank you to Student Services, Child Welfare and Attendance Department specifically. I'll just shout out to Chrissy Padilla and her team and what they're doing to push attendance. Kids, keep coming to school. We need you at school. We want you to learn. And it's fun. School is fun. I know it is. So with that, that is my superintendent's communique this evening, and I'll turn it back over to you, Board President.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to the board member comments. And let me find my page now. I will start with board member Dan Flores. Board member Fuentes.
Thank you, Board President. First of all, I want to say happy birthday to my colleague, Pat Harrell. She's the birthday girl for Halloween. So happy birthday, Pat. And why don't we sing happy birthday to her right now? Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Come on. Happy birthday to you. To- Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pat. Happy birthday to you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I went on Halloween. I went out to visit some of the schools, and there was some great events going on. We had some parades and costume contests and all of that. And I was at a Grand Terrace High School, and they had the animatronics out there. Those kids did phenomenal. Mr. Johnson's classroom there on engineering and all of that cool stuff. They had a skeleton popping out of a coffin, but they made all of it. It was made out of cardboard and all of that great stuff. We had, let's see here, it was Monsters Inc. and they would have this door open and a bunch of candy would pop out of it, and it was really cool. And there was one that was really scary too. It had like this foam skull inside this thing, and it would pop out. I mean, amazing work from the young men and women that did these animatronics. And I also want to commend Mr. Reese, Marcos Reese, for the contest. They rolled out the red carpet, and they had these kids walking on the red carpet. And so it was a great 2 lunches that they had there. And I know the kids had a lot of fun with that. From there, I actually headed out to San Salvador Preschool, and they had a little parade. And that was very cute to see. You see these 3-year-old, 4-year-old kids in costumes parading down around the school there. And then Mama Lisa, which is Mrs. Simpson there, they call her Mama Lisa. And you can hear the students calling her Mama Lisa, Mama Lisa. She led the group in this cute, I think it was, I forgot what kind of costume it was, but it was really cute. So you could see these kids parading around, having fun. The parents were there, and it was great to see. Great to see the involvement that they have. And if you haven't been to San Salvador lately, I would recommend you go out there and visit. They have this beautiful garden, which they had some great big watermelons that I think she said there was maybe 30 watermelons that they were able to grow. And so these kids are learning at that age already. But there was one little guy. He was dressed in this pumpkin costume with this little hat. And I think he's about a little less than what the side from the table here, maybe 1.5 feet tall or maybe 2 feet. His name's Logan. Young man just started to learn how to walk. But man, he was walking. And he paraded all around the area there, and they couldn't stop him. So a big shout out to Logan, amazing young little man, and I won't forget him. I think every time I go visit, I'll probably look for him. But just wanted a big shout out to preschool, and then also a shout out to Colton High School. Also, they had this safety awareness yesterday for their community, and I think it's important that we get out there and share information with our community. And I commend Principal Abbott and the district office for doing that. A lot of times parents want to know, and you've seen it on social media. But the sad thing is, and I'm going to say it, not very many people showed up. And I think parents, if you're listening, when there's important things like that, when we have awareness on drugs, awareness on fentanyl, awareness, anything that has to do with safety, it's something that I would consider you to come. Make some time for you to come out to these meetings. These are put on by law enforcement people, by our safety department, by our assistant sup or superintendent, the school principal. It is important that you attend these meetings. You get a lot of information. A lot of times we question why things aren't happening, but this is where you get the answer. So I'd recommend for you as a parent, if you're listening and if you're here today, to go out to these meetings. Make some time, 1.5 hours. That's all it's going to take. And you will get the information and you will get the answer to your question. And I'm going to end on this one too. Some of our schools are actually near some local businesses. We have some schools, for example, I'll give you Colton High School. Colton High School, you guys know, it's on Rancho and Valley Boulevard, and we have various restaurants around there. Wiener Schnitzel, Leno's Tacos, I think Del Taco, and some other restaurants. Parents, Some of these restaurants depend on their parking. And a lot of times we understand that you want to pick up your child in a safe area. But some of these parking areas are for those customers of those restaurants, of those businesses. And I ask from the bottom of my heart, let's try to find another location to pick up your child. Some of these businesses, they get overwhelmed with non-customers. So I understand, like I said, you're there to pick up your child. We all want to pick up our child in a safe area. But some of these businesses, like I said, this is what they need for their customers, is their parking spot. So let's respect these restaurants or these retail areas that they have these parking spots for their customers. And let's find another location to pick up our child. There's many locations you can pick up your child. I have a location when I pick up my daughter at Bloomington High. I tell her, I'll meet you here, but I try to do it where it's not in the way of residents or in the way of anything that's going to endanger her. So let's try to do that. I appreciate everyone. I appreciate their teachers, our administration from every single school. Everyone's doing an awesome job. I appreciate our M&O guys that are here every meeting, and they're making sure that the chairs are up, the tables are clean. Gentleman that comes up to the podium and wipes the podium down, making sure everyone's okay. I appreciate you all. And for our safety department, I commend the 3 safety officers from Bloomington High School, but I also commend every single one of our safety officers at every school for what they do every day to make sure that our students are safe. Have a great one. God bless you each.
Board Member Thoring Ojeda. Board Member Haro.
I just have a few, real quick, a few things. I want to thank Angela Chavez and at Smith Elementary. I went to her, this is her first year as a principal doing a Halloween trunk or treat. And it was very well attended. And so many of the community came up to me and said, thank you for putting Miss Angela at Smith. So I just wanted to say what a great job she did. I also want to thank Cooley Ranch. Every year, my birthday's on Halloween, so every year I get asked to lead their Halloween parade, and I love it because those little kids are so darn cute. And but I feel bad because we walk around the courtyard twice. And those little TKs, boy, they have a hard time getting around there twice, but they had a blast. So thank you so much again for the invitation every year. The last thing I wanted to bring up is I understand that after this school year, we will no longer have the Apple Scholarship program. And I would just like to find out, this program impacts so many students in our district. And it made me really sad to hear this because I know, including my own daughter, I know many students over the years of when she was in high school and since then who have been beneficiaries of these scholarships and who would not be able to attend college if it wasn't for some of the monies that they receive. So I understand, things are different now, but I'd like to know if we're planning on doing anything else in its place. If we could find out, like in board correspondence. And my last thing is normally I end my board comments with a quote. But instead today, I'm going to read something else because if you're a teacher or administrator, you don't always hear that the things you do make a difference. Today is one of our teachers' birthday. I won't say her name out of respect to her, but her kids wrote her notes. And I started to cry when I saw these notes. So I want to share them with you as my quotes tonight. You're the best teacher ever. I hope you have a good day. Happy birthday to a wonderful, because I'm reading them exactly how the kids wrote them, teacher. Happy birthday to a very special teacher. I'm blessed to be a student of yours, as your lessons have touched my heart. Dear teacher, just to show you how you've changed my entire life. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. If that isn't the best out of the mouths of babes. So that is my quote tonight.
Thank you. Okay, I do not have comments tonight, so the board will now adjourn into closed session to discuss items listed on the closed session agenda. Thank you. In closed session, the board heard an appeal pursuant policy 4030. The board voted with a motion by Board Member Dan Flores and second by Board Member Fuentes. The board voted to deny the complaint and instruct legal counsel to prepare a response on the board's behalf. The vote was unanimous with Member Sandoval and Ibarra absent. Okay, item 11.1, we have student discipline. We have 2 student discipline items presented in closed session. Is there a motion to uphold the expulsion orders as presented? I have a motion by Board Member Flores and a second by Board Member Fuentes to uphold the expulsion orders as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, nay. On motion of Board Member Flores and Board Member Fuentes, and carried on a 5-0 vote, the board upheld the expulsion of 2 students' discipline items as presented. The student numbers are 1054756 and 1087183. Okay, item 11.2. On a motion by Board Member Fuentes and second by Board Member Thoring Ojeda, the board approved the following. We have certificated coaches, 2, at head junior varsity basketball girls and head varsity swimming co-ed. Certificated regular staff, 2, counselor at Crestmore and teacher at Bernie. Classified management, 1, classified HR analyst, DOHR. Classified coaches, 3, 1 band, head varsity tennis, varsity basketball assistant boys. Volunteer coaches, 6, band, co-ed, basketball boys, soccer boys, wrestling co-ed, 3. And we have volunteer general, 26. Item 11.3, in closed session and on a motion of Board Member Haro and second by Board Member Fuentes and on a 5-0 vote, the board appointed Sandra Trujillo, Assistant Principal, Elementary School, Zimmerman Elementary School. Okay, we are adjourning at 8:08.